She couldn't have survived that blast. Radio signals went completely dead after the rocket attack. The search team assumed the worst. But 2 hours later, when scouts approached the red zone, 6 enemy vehicles lay burning in a perfect arc formation. A DSR-50 rifle dropped near the scope. Through the smoke, a female soldier with torn uniforms still gripped the safety, eyes unblinking. Nobody dared to speak. Argentine Hill Country Military Base. October 2000, 100 meters elevation. Dry, cold climate with treacherous terrain. Valeria Cruz, 28 years old. Support sniper. Not part of the elite unit roster. Colombian-born, former Joint Police sniper instructor before switching to military service. Small frame, wearing dark glasses, soft voice. Often mistaken for medical staff or logistics personnel. In the squad, she usually sat in the back. Ate quickly, rarely spoke. A lieutenant once mocked her. "If you're such a good shot, why are you still fixing other people's rifles?" Valeria didn't react. She simply said, "I don't need them to know. I need the rifle ready when it matters." When she expressed interest in joining the reconnaissance mission, her superior said, "Just stay back and handle technical support." The base operated like most military units. Hierarchy mattered more than skill. Valeria had been there 8 months, yet most soldiers couldn't even pronounce her last name correctly. During weapons maintenance, she'd often spot problems. Others missed. A misaligned scope here, a trigger mechanism issue there. She'd fix them silently, never taking credit. Other soldiers would joke, "Cruz is like a ghost. You never see her coming, never hear her leave." What they didn't know was that Valeria had 347 confirmed long-range hits during her police service. Her record included stopping 3 separate hostage situations with single precise shots. But military culture was different. Here, your reputation came from who vouched for you, not what you could do. The night before the reconnaissance mission, Valeria cleaned her personal DSR-50. The rifle had been her companion for 4 years. She knew its exact ballistic patterns, wind compensation needs, even how humidity affected its accuracy. Her bunkmate asked, "Why do you always clean that thing? You're not even going tomorrow." Valeria looked up briefly. "Because when someone needs it, it has to work perfectly." That evening, the mission briefing excluded her completely. 8 soldiers would handle the convoy interdiction. She was assigned to base support and equipment backup. As the team prepared to leave at dawn, Valeria made one quiet request to the commanding officer. "Sir, if radio contact is lost, please let me join the search team." He barely looked up from his maps. "Cruz, we need someone to have a conversation with you." She was in the search for the commanding officer. She was in the search of the commanding officer. She was in the search for the commanding officer. She was in the search of the commanding officer. She was in the search for the commanding officer. She was in the search of the commanding officer. She was in the search for the commanding officer. She was in the search of the commanding officer. She was in the search for the commanding officer. She was in the search of the commanding officer. She was in the search for the commanding officer. She was in the search of the commanding officer. She was in the search for the commanding officer. She was in the search for the strength? Comment. Silence doesn't mean weakness. A teammate later recalled, "I once saw Valeria reassemble a scope mount during a hailstorm. Her eyes never left the hilltop, even though the cold made her hands bleed. She didn't need electronic scopes. She used hand-drawn maps and memorized wind lag calculations. Nobody teaches that anymore." Lima Delta Reconnaissance Team, 8 soldiers, moved out to intercept enemy supply lines. Valeria was assigned to rear guard, the farthest position next to an abandoned bunker complex. As the main team prepared to advance, an unexpected rocket struck the reconnaissance center. 5 soldiers killed instantly. The base collapsed by 1/3. All radio contact lost. Main command logged everyone as MIA, presumed dead. But 41 minutes later, from a strike zone, a single shot was fired, hitting the front tire of the enemy command vehicle. Radar detected 5 more shots, each spaced nearly 10 minutes apart, all hitting vehicle engines. Base command assumed it was equipment malfunction. A young officer whispered, "Maybe." Someone still alive, and shooting, to keep the enemy pinned down. The enemy convoy had been advancing to secure the area when the first shot rang out. Their commander immediately ordered defensive positions, thinking they were facing a larger force. What they didn't realize was that one person, positioned in an abandoned bunker 800 meters away, was systematically disabling their vehicles. Valeria had been thrown against the bunker wall during the initial blast. Her left side bled from shrapnel, her radio was destroyed, but her rifle remained functional. Through her scope, she could see the enemy soldiers searching the rubble where her teammates had been. She also saw something else: 3 wounded soldiers from her unit, hiding behind concrete debris, unable to move. The enemy hadn't found them yet, but they would. Valeria made a calculation. If she started shooting immediately, she might take out 2 or 3 vehicles before they located her position. But that wouldn't be enough. Instead, she waited, watched, studied their movement patterns. The enemy commander was careful. He positioned his vehicles in a defensive arc, engines running, ready to evacuate if necessary. Smart tactics. But Valeria noticed something. Every 10 minutes, the commander sent one vehicle to patrol the perimeter, while the others held position. Always the same pattern. She aimed for the patrol vehicle first. One shot, front tire. The vehicle couldn't retreat, but the driver could still radio for help. This made the commander think there were multiple snipers. He pulled all vehicles back into tighter formation. Exactly what Valeria wanted. Now they were clustered together, engines exposed, unable to spread out without risking another ambush. She waited exactly 10 minutes between each shot. Long enough for them to think the threat had moved. Short enough to keep them nervous. Shot 2, command vehicle engine block. Now they couldn't coordinate effectively. Shot 3, ammunition truck radiator. No explosion, but the vehicle was immobilized. The enemy soldiers began returning fire randomly, shooting at shadows. They wasted ammunition on empty positions while Valeria remained perfectly still. Shot 4, communications vehicle engine. Now they were truly isolated. Through her scope, she saw the enemy commander arguing with his subordinates. Some wanted to charge her position. Others wanted to call for air support. But they couldn't do either. They didn't know exactly where she was, and their radios were dead. Meanwhile, Valeria could see her 3 wounded teammates still hiding in the rubble. One was bleeding badly. Time was running out. Shot 5, the last operational vehicle. Now, the entire enemy unit was stranded. The commander finally made his decision. He ordered his soldiers to advance on foot, leaving the vehicles behind. This was what Valeria had been waiting for. With the enemy out of their armored vehicles, moving across open ground, she could protect her teammates effectively. But she was also running low on ammunition, and blood loss was making her vision blur. The real fight was about to begin. When the rescue team finally reached the scene 2 hours later, they found Valeria in a semi-conscious state. Blood seeping from her left side. Her hands still gripped the safety mechanism of the DSR-50. Eyes open, silent. Nearby lay 6 completely destroyed enemy vehicles, arranged in a fan pattern that blocked all escape routes. A medic approached and asked, "How long were you holding this position?" She spoke only one sentence. "Tell me, did they get out safely?" The tactical report later revealed that by keeping the enemy unit pinned down, she had enabled the successful evacuation of the remaining team members. But there was more to discover. In the abandoned bunker where Valeria had made her stand, investigators found something extraordinary. Detailed wind calculation charts drawn in the dirt. Elevation markers scratched into the concrete walls. Range estimates for every possible target position within a 1,200-meter radius. This wasn't desperate survival shooting. This was precision tactical planning. The base commander called Valeria to his office when she recovered. "Why didn't you ever request assignment to the primary sniper unit?" Valeria replied, "Because I don't need permission to know when to pull the trigger." Her personnel file was immediately updated. But the real story came from the enemy survivors they captured later. Under interrogation, The enemy commander revealed what had actually happened during those 2 hours. "We thought we were fighting an entire sniper team," he said. "The shots came from different angles. Perfect timing. Always targeting our weakest points. When we tried to advance, more shots came from positions we hadn't seen before. We counted at least 12 different firing positions." The investigators were confused. There was only one sniper. How could she appear to be shooting from multiple locations? Valeria's technique was revealed when they examined the bunker complex more carefully. The old bunker had multiple connected chambers with different sight lines. Between shots, she had been moving through underground passages, changing positions, creating the illusion of multiple snipers. Each shot was fired from a different angle, making the enemy think they were surrounded. But the most remarkable discovery came from her ammunition count. She had started with 23 rounds. When rescued, she had 7 remaining. 16 shots fired over 2 hours, 6 vehicles disabled. 4 enemy soldiers neutralized when they tried to flank her position. 0 missed shots. The ballistics team called it impossible accuracy under combat stress. Her former police captain was contacted for her service record. His response shocked everyone. "Valeria Cruz isn't just a sniper. She's a tactical genius. During hostage situations, she could predict exactly where suspects would move before they knew it themselves. We offered her command positions multiple times. She always refused, said she worked better alone." The most telling detail came from security footage found in the enemy vehicles. The timestamp showed that Valeria's first shot came exactly when the enemy commander ordered his soldiers to sweep and clear the rubble where her wounded teammates were hiding. She hadn't started shooting to save herself. She had started shooting to save them. During the internal briefing, the base commander asked, "Why didn't you call for backup? Why? Why handle this alone?" Valeria's answer became legendary among the unit. "Because when someone needs help, you don't wait for permission. You just do what needs to be done." After that day, the entire base reclassified her status. Strategic level sniper. Previous Kia assessment. Incorrect, currently active service. But Valeria had one more surprise. She submitted a formal request to return to training duties. When asked why she didn't want a combat promotion, she said, "I can train 20 snipers who are better than me. That's worth more than being the best shooter on one mission." The base commander approved her request immediately. But he also added a special note to her file. In critical situations, Sergeant Cruz has full tactical autonomy. No prior authorization required. It was the first time in the base's history that a non-commissioned officer received the level of operational freedom. Valeria never discussed the incident publicly, but word spread throughout the military community. Other units began requesting her as a tactical consultant, not for her shooting skills, but for her ability to turn impossible situations into winnable scenarios. Valeria declined all medals and honors. She refused to speak with military journalists. She requested reassignment to ballistic simulation training, teaching cadets to analyze shooting trajectories from satellite imagery. She never mentioned that battle again, but after every training session, she always wrote one message in chalk on the blackboard. "You don't need to shoot often. You just need to shoot when nobody else can." Her training methods were unconventional. Instead of focusing on marksmanship fundamentals, she taught tactical psychology. Before you aim at a target, she would tell her students, understand why that target chose to be there. She taught them to read terrain like a chessboard. Every hill, every building, every tree line had tactical significance. "A sniper who only knows how to shoot is just an expensive rifle," she would say. "A sniper who thinks 3 moves ahead can change the entire battle." Her classes became the most requested training sessions on the base. One female cadet asked her, "Weren't you afraid nobody would come to rescue you?" Valeria paused, looked out the window toward the hills, and replied, "I wasn't shooting to be rescued. I was shooting so they could wait to be rescued." The impact of her teaching went beyond marksmanship. Cadets from her classes showed improved tactical thinking across all military disciplines. Her philosophy was simple. Every shot you don't take is as important as every shot you do. 6 months after the incident, Valeria received an unusual visitor. The mother of one of the soldiers she had saved came to the base. The woman didn't speak much English, but through a translator, she said, "I wanted to see the person who brought my son home." Valeria simply shook her hand and said, "He brought himself home. I just made sure the path stayed clear." That interaction changed something in Valeria. She began adding a new element to her training program. Remember, she would tell each graduating class, some of the students were going to be able to do it. Somewhere someone is waiting for you to make the right decision. Don't let them down. Her influence spread beyond the military. Local police departments began requesting her expertise for hostage situation training. But Valeria remained the same quiet person she had always been. She still sat in the back during meetings, still ate quickly, and spoke little. The difference was that now when she did speak, everyone listened. Have you ever learned your greatest lesson from someone who never needed to speak up? I want to become someone like her. Valeria Cruz. Someone nobody noticed on the original mission roster. But she was also the reason 3 people survived and an entire enemy convoy was completely neutralized. She didn't need to prove she was skilled. She just needed to keep her scope ready and maintain the right position. Sometimes silence isn't about fear. It's about knowing that when the moment comes, you'll act without needing anyone's permission. The greatest warriors aren't always the loudest ones. They're the ones who understand that true strength comes from being exactly where you need to be, exactly when you need to be there. Valeria taught us that heroism isn't about recognition. It's about responsibility. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply hold your position until others can reach safety. In a world full of noise, she chose precision. In a moment of chaos, she chose clarity. That's the difference between surviving and saving others. Real people. Real courage. Real courage. No mass AI. Real courage. Real courage. No mass AI. Real courage. Subscribe to my channel.